great speaker today. I've never met John Buttrick before. I've talked to him on the phone and email before, but some friends of mine have told me he's a great speaker, and he's quite an advocate for libertarian causes. John Buttrick was in the U.S. military from 1966 to 1970. He was stationed in Turkey, in Vietnam. After that, he went to school at the University of Denver and then got his law degree at Harvard University. He was admitted to the bar in Arizona in 1976. He was with the law firm of Brown and Bain from 1976 until 2001. In 2001, he was appointed by Governor Jane Hall to be a Superior Court judge. He ran for re-election in 2004, received 73% of the vote. He ran for re-election in 2008 and received 75% of the vote.
75%. He got more votes that year in this one state than his opponent did in the entire country. Is that correct? Is that correct?
You mean Bob Barr?
Yeah. More out of one state than the entire country. So that's pretty impressive.
Judge Buttrick has been involved in libertarian causes for decades. He was a libertarian candidate for governor in 1994, libertarian candidate for Arizona House of Representatives in 1998. He has been, again, active in various libertarian causes. Let's give a big round of applause for John Buttrick.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be fighting the acoustics and the lack of lighting here. So
actually, the acoustics it might be better to go in the middle.
No, we're fine.
Go in the middle and sort of in the right. No, the camera people don't go in.
Oh, okay.
So from time to time, if you can't hear me, just ask me to repeat things. My wife says that's what I do very well, is repeat things, so I can do that for you. And if I get lost in my notes from time to time, forgive me, because it's hard to see up here. A couple of disclaimers. First of all, as a sitting judge, I cannot make any statements relating to pending cases or about cases that might come in front of me in Superior Court. I also can't make any political endorsements. I can't tell you who to vote for or who not to vote for. You can figure that out for yourself. You don't need me to say that anyway. Also, I should point out that I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so I can't make any statements, and I don't know anything about, literally, the science of the detriments or advantages of the use of any specific drug, legal or illegal. Right? So I'm completely ignorant in that regard, and that's fine. That doesn't mean I don't have opinions about what should be legal and illegal, and that's what we'll get into right now. Here's what I can talk about. First of all, the arguments for and against the government's war on drugs. Second, the effects of the war on drugs on the legal system. That's something that I have had personal experience with, and I can talk to you about that. And third, maybe some suggestions about what individuals ought to be doing in order to move drug policy in a more rational direction over the coming years. In the flyer that went out over the net about this speech tonight, somebody mentioned that I had referred to the war on drugs as the insane war on drugs. I don't think I coined that phrase. I think that came from Harry Brown at some prior time or whatever, but I'm willing to steal from other people. The war on drugs is insane. Now you might say, well, okay, we'll go with that. What does he mean by that? Well, there are several definitions for insanity. One that's very common is people say, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you expect a different result, you're insane. Okay. Another way to talk about insanity is to talk about it in terms of being delusional, or having a delusional view of the universe and trying to apply that to your daily life, or being unable to perform simple deductive reasoning to determine what actions you should undertake. The war on drugs suffers from all of those definitions of insanity. Let's start with a little bit of the history. As most of you probably know, many of you probably know this much better than I do, the history of drug laws in this country. Really, before World War I, drug laws were virtually non-existent. In the early 20th century, a 10-year-old could walk into a pharmacy, or what we call a drugstore today, and buy heroin by the dose. There were virtually no limitations on the sale, distribution, or manufacture of drugs. However, starting about that time, and then accelerating again in the 1960s, the government has waged a war on some drugs. And they've picked and chosen which drugs they want to have be illegal over time, and that's varied from time to time. And the extent of the punishments or penalties related to those drugs has also varied tremendously. Between World War I and the 1960s, enforcement of drug laws was not a very high priority, with one very notable exception. In 1920 through 1933, it was illegal to sell, distribute, purchase, consume, or possess alcoholic beverages within the entire United States of America. As we know, that's prohibition. That was one form of drug prohibition, of drug war that was extremely intense during that period and spawned almost unimaginable violence and destruction, as well as extraordinary expenditure of money and people's liberty being restrained during that time period. I'll get back to that in a little while. From the 1960s to the present time, that's through essentially the adult time for all of us in this room. I may be the oldest person here, but I really can't remember a time when there wasn't a fairly intensive war on drugs being waged by the federal government and, to some degree, varying from state to state by local municipalities. And across that time, we've had police forces, prosecutors, and virtually the entire political class, that is almost all elected officials, engaged in this war. So the first question is the pragmatic question. What has been the result of this decades-long concerted effort to restrict the usage of drugs in this country? And the answer, by virtually any metric you choose, whether you want to talk about drug consumption, drug production, the number of people involved in the drug industry, etc., by any metric you choose, the war on drugs has been a complete and abject failure, because drugs, no matter what drug you're talking about, are available virtually everywhere. So this enormous effort has been undertaken with virtual uniformity through the political class and by the federal government and by state governments has yielded nothing in terms of a positive result. So if you're a pure pragmatist, all that appeals to you is the answer to the question, does it work? As applied to the war on drugs, the answer is no, it doesn't work. And we all know this, either by our own experiences or anecdotally from other people. In fact, if you think about it, the most bizarre example of the availability of drugs is to look at our penal system. Virtually any jail or prison in this country, drugs are freely available within the prison. If the government cannot stop the distribution of drugs in a prison where everyone is locked up, accounted for, and numbered, how could it possibly stop the distribution of drugs in the relatively open society outside the prison walls?